Welcome to Real Estate.
As we always do on Real Estate Radio Live on 𝗘𝗀𝗃𝗀 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network, and it's Halloween. So we have a triple shot for you today. 1 to 2 was Tom Wilson, 2 to 3 is me, and 3 to 4 is going to be Joe and Bobby and Buddy. So really action-packed afternoon today for all you trick-or-treaters out there looking for real estate information, and that's always great information and education that we do on the show. And I got a great show in store for you today. I'm on my own, and as you guys know, when I'm on my own, it's always an open forum, and I'll give out the number to call in just a second. But today we're going to be talking about new home sales and the pros and cons and how to buy new construction. We saw a dip in new construction sales this last month, and that was in the news. And there's some new construction going on in the Silicon Valley. I got a couple stories for you, so a lot to get to. But before I do that, just a reminder for those of you just tuning in, there's a couple different ways you can listen to the show. That is on the radio at 𝗘𝗀𝗃𝗀 1220 AM, or you can listen to us live online at 𝗘𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃.biz, or you can go to the newly designed Radio Live website. That's 𝗓𝗡radiolive.com, 𝗓𝗡radiolive.com, or you can download the apps we got. That's the KDOW app, or you can download the iHeartRadio app and listen to us on the go. And now we are on iTunes, so we've been pumping this up for the past few weeks, and we're going to continue to pump it up. We are on iTunes. We are podcasting every show we do now, so you can check us out after the show. It's all edited and no commercials, and it's you can listen to it streamlined anywhere and anytime you want. So we are on iTunes, and you can go check us out there, the Real Estate Radio Live crew. And also, we come to you 5 days a week live on the air. That's Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. with bonus coverage on Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m., which is what I'm doing now. And we're also a live show, so we love to get your questions and your phone calls on the air. You can give us a buzz, 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220 is the number. And you can call in anytime today, and we can ask all sorts of real estate questions, not just about new construction, but anything else you have going on in your real estate life. Or if you don't want to call in and you're bashful, which don't be scared to call in, but you can also go to my website. That's MikeSellsSiliconValley.com. That's MikeSellsSiliconValley.com, and you can go on there and click the radio or contact me tab, and you can submit your question while I'm on the air. And, really the topic of today came from a listener email asking me a couple questions about new construction and just through some of the other things I've been experiencing lately. These are how these topics come up. Whenever I do, a lot of the times when I do shows on my own, a lot of these topics are coming straight from you guys and straight from things that are happening in the real estate industry. So don't be afraid to chime in. We want to appeal and appease our listeners. So if you have something on your mind or want to learn about something, feel free to reach out. And finally, on Tuesday of next week, that's Tuesday, November 3rd. Tuesday, November 3rd is the final Real Estate Radio Live event of the year, and that's at the Toll House Hotel in Los Gatos. And that's from, the show is from 3 to 4 p.m., and then from 4 to 6 is networking and wine and appetizers like we always have afterwards, and it's always a good time. There's a lot of industry professionals there. There's listeners. There's all sorts of people that go to the Real Estate Radio Live event. And so that is this upcoming Tuesday, November 3rd, and the event goes from 3 to 6. So stop by anytime. Make sure you RSVP, and you can find the information on that on Facebook or on the RE Radio Live website. And the topic next week is going to be it's with the financial advisor, Kristen Niedermeyer, and it's going to be talking about financial advising for your life and really coming up with a plan. And she's got some great stuff. So make sure you either tune in or come and show up for that. All right. So let's get into the topic today. And before I do that, an article came across my desk the other day about Apple. And as a lot of you guys know, Apple is, one of the biggest companies in the area. They're in process of constructing one of the biggest office complexes in the area, the quote-unquote spaceship, and that's over in Cupertino. And it's going to be amazing. If you've ever driven by there recently, what they're doing over there is just absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend you go check that out. And just recently, so what this article was about, that they just bought another giant piece of land in North San Jose over off of Highway 101 and 𝗔𝗕𝗏𝗧 Avenue. That's kind of in the North 1st Street, Zanker area. And that's really the latest in a series of transactions that gives Apple about 70 acres in San Jose's North 1st Tech Corridor. So over on North 1st Street, where there's a lot of tech companies, you have your Apples, you have your Samsungs, and you have your Cisco and all that. So Apple is buying up property left and right, and they paid a cool $165.8 million for the property. So that's kind of a drop in the bucket for them. But this property was originally owned by an affiliate of the San Francisco-based Ellis Partners. That's what the property records show. And it really wasn't a bad return for Ellis, who bought it only back in 2012 for $48.5 million, and now they're selling it to Apple for $165.8 million. So that's a nice little profit they got in 3 years. The purchase includes a 290,000 square foot building that Apple was previously leasing from Ellis anyway, so they've been there, and also 12 acres of bare land that's approved for an additional 650,000 square feet of additional office space. So that's really interesting. We'll see what they have to say. The deal raises a lot of questions because Apple, they were trying to, they bought another piece of land, 43 acres of land on the other side of Orchard Parkway for $140 million. And, what the speculation is for that is they have some pretty well-documented interest in building electric cars. So we're wondering, whether this is going to be the site of their new electric car plant, or, in my personal opinion, that's some really expensive real estate to put a manufacturing plant on. Usually you see those types of things go up elsewhere that's not so central to central San Jose and to all the amenities and that type of thing. Usually a plant of that magnitude is, you would see that out in South San Jose or Morgan Hill or, areas that are a little bit further away from the city center. So Apple's up to some big things, and it definitely spells out good news for property owners throughout Santa Clara County and beyond. And like I say all the time on the show, we live in one of the best areas of the country and the world when it comes to real estate. So it's something to hang our hat on, and it's going to be good for a long time. So it's not going to be, 20 to 30% appreciation year over year that we've seen the last couple of years, but it's definitely going to be good for a long time. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can pretty much, based on stuff like this from Apple, it's going to be, this is a good area to invest your money in. Let's just say that. And real estate's always good to invest your money in my opinion. So, all right, let's get into the topic today. And 1-800-516-1220 is the number. 1-800-516-1220 is the number. And so new home sales, so new construction. And all across the country, new homes plunged sharply in September. And it's kind of it's a seasonal thing and a seasonal adjustment that usually happens in September with new home sales. But across the nation, new home sales slumped about 11.5% last month. And that's a rate of about 468,000, which is the lowest level since November of 2014. And September's drop ended a 2-month streak of accelerating sales. So really, new home sales really follow the trendy times during the year for the peak home selling season. So really during the holidays and that type of thing, new home sales slump a lot more than regular home sales. And they really peak during the summertime when they have all their signs out and all their big flags and all sorts of openings and that type of thing. So new home sales really accentuate the peaks of the market more so than existing construction. So that's something to keep in mind. But still, America's zeal for newly built homes really took off this year. But it looks like now it kind of topped out for the year, and it'll probably pick back up again in the next year. And what's contributed to that is obviously the job market. Solid hiring over the past 3 years has really improved a lot of family balance sheets. Rising home prices have returned a lot of equity to current homeowners who have been seeking an upgrade, so therefore they're upgrading possibly into a brand new home. And so they've soared over the last couple of years, and that's a good thing. It's healthy. It's healthy to have that. So let's get into, how to buy new construction. And we never really talked about this on the show before. Mainly, I think we overlook it sometimes because there's not a lot of new construction in the Bay Area just because there's really no land to build on. There's a couple of projects going on off of 85 in South San Jose right now. There's been some other projects throughout, other infill projects in Santa Clara County, in Alameda County that have been going up, but nothing considerable and major that we've really been seeing because there's just not a lot of land to build on. So why is it different? It is definitely a different process than buying a previously built home or a, older home. So for obviously the first reason is because there's been no previous homeowner. So that's number one. You don't have to deal with the seller's emotional tie to the property. And that, because that typically influences the negotiating process, of course, if you're dealing with a existing home and an existing homeowner that's emotional and that loves the things the things they've done to their house, and that usually influences negotiating in the process. So the other thing is when you're buying a new home, you only have to work with the builder, so you don't have to work with anybody else. The builder usually has a sales department. It's almost like buying a car. I would compare it to. You can pick your upgrades, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But the biggest thing is that, and the same thing with buying a previously owned home, is that you really have to figure out your budget and secure financing before you even begin house hunting. And we talk about this all the time on Real Estate Radio Live, in particular with Joe, and he's a lender, and we talk about that. People always want to go out and check out property before they're even financially ready for it. So the most important thing you need to do is really figure out your financing before going house hunting, in particular for new construction. Get pre-approved by your mortgage bank or by your bank or a lender. Decide how much money you want to invest in a new home. Do not overlook the extras like property taxes, insurance, furniture, window treatments, landscaping costs, maintenance, and because oftentimes with new construction, there's going to be additional costs that are involved, and a lot of times they're out of pocket. So you really got to make sure you dial all that in and make sure you're making the right decision, you can afford it, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to get in on the next side. We're going to get into the pros and cons, neighborhoods and builders, all that good stuff about new construction. 1-800-516-1220 is the number. 1-800-516-1220 is the number. I'm Mike 𝗘𝗀𝗎. This is Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
And I'm in the studio today on this Halloween Eve, and we're talking about new home construction. That's not too scary, but love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220. Have you bought a new home recently? Are you thinking about it? Feel free to give us a buzz. And this segment's brought to you by Giorgio's Italian Food and Pizzeria and Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi's too. The best Italian food around with 4 convenient locations throughout the Bay Area to serve you. You can go to Giorgio's and fjlitalian.com for more info on their famous happy hour specials, or you can go to my website too for information on all of our wonderful sponsors. All right, so let's get back into buying new construction. And like I said on the previous break, or the previous segment, really it's always nice to buy a nice, shiny, brand new home. And so let's really weigh the pros and cons. So obviously, again, like I just said, nothing beats the feeling of being the first person to live in a newly built home, and everything's nice and shiny, untouched, not abused or anything like that, like an older home could be sometimes. And you can buy a brand new home in one of 3 ways. It kind of breaks down. You can buy a house already built on spec. You can have a semi-custom home built as a part of a development, which is more likely than not. And if you do that, you can choose from a set palette of finishes and upgrades and whatnot. Or you can have a purely custom home built and designed to your specifications. So again, a house already built on spec, a semi-custom home as a part of a development, or a purely custom home, if you bought a piece of land and you built it to that, or tore a house down and built it there. But really, let's see if new construction fits your lifestyle, because a lot of these questions are going to be more targeted towards the person that's buying a semi-custom home as a part of a development. So the first thing that you want to consider, and whether it's a pro or con, it's really up to you to decide. But the first thing is, new homes are typically further from the city center. So are you going to mind a commute? And the reason I say that, and it's kind of a generalization because new developments are built, in downtown sometimes, in midtowns, whatever. But usually giant developments are going to be built further from the city center. That's what's called, for those of you that took real estate classes in college, that's what's called urban sprawl. And what that is as land, becomes a premium and land gets more scarce, the builders have to go to more of the outskirts of town. And it's going to make your commute a little bit longer. You're going to be further from some amenities unless they build them closer to the development and that type of thing. So first thing to consider is, are you going to mind the commute, and are you going to mind being further from amenities than you might if you lived somewhere else and you bought a new construction? So that's the first one. The second one is, are you willing to, I guess the overall question, are you going to be willing to coax a new lawn into existence? Are you going to be able to wait 20 years for trees to mature? So I guess the point of this next question is, would you rather live in a more mature neighborhood, or are you going to be able to live and live in a newer neighborhood that's not as green, not as lush, and looks a little more new, I guess you could call it. Third thing, kind of along the same lines, is the cookie-cutter nature of new subdivisions going to drive you bonkers? So a lot of new subdivisions, they have multiple floor plans. A lot of the houses look the same. Now, granted, this is unless you're buying in a very custom new home development, which is pretty rare. Are you going to be okay with living, near in a cookie-cutter neighborhood? And that's kind of similar with new existing homes in other neighborhoods. At one time, those were new homes too. But over time, those existing homes, they usually, they've been painted different colors, they've been added onto, they've been remodeled. So things look a little bit different in older neighborhoods. The trees are more grown in, the landscape is more grown in, so it's not as apparent. So in new construction, are you going to be able to live with that and be able to drive through that every day and not get depressed, I guess is the question. So that's the next one. And finally, and probably the biggest thing for most people and nowadays is, and you just see it everywhere, the fourth thing is new houses are going to be built right on top of each other. So are you going to mind the closeness and the potential lack of privacy? Because that is a major thing with new construction now. They're trying to fit as many houses in a development as possible. They're trying to make their numbers work. So are you going to be okay with being right on top of your neighbor? Because new developments are not built like they once were, with a little bit bigger lots, and all that. So are you going to be okay with that? So those are some of the things to weigh the pros and cons. The next step we're going to get into side of the break is going to be researching the neighborhoods and the builders, making sure you know what you're getting into. 1-800-516-1220 is the number, 1-800-516-1220. I'm Mike 𝗘𝗀𝗪𝗏. This is Real Estate Radio Live. Happy Halloween, everybody. Stick around. We'll be right. And I'm in studio today. We're talking new home construction. How do you buy that? What's the deal? All that good stuff. Love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220. 1-800-516-1220. You can go to 𝗥𝗲𝗹.com and submit your question online. Pretty much where this topic came from. So that's what we're talking about today. Keep them coming, people. Feel free to reach out anytime via social media, online, phone calls, however you want. All right. And this segment is brought to you by Taps Termite, serving the Bay Area for over 45 years. Taps Termite is committed to keeping your living area pest-free by using the newest and safest technologies. You can call Taps today for a complimentary inspection, 408-259-5900. Don't be scared. Call Taps Termite today and get those termites figured out. All right? So let's get back into new home construction. The first step that we were talking about in the last segment was weighing the pros and cons about new construction. And now we're going to get into researching the neighborhoods, the builders, etc. So when buying in a new subdivision, you really want to consider working with the buyer's agent, and a buyer's agent that knows the area and knows it well. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a real estate agent myself, but what a buyer's agent can do for you is set up the home tours, walk you through the closing process. And so some of the things that you need to consider when you're researching real estate agents, really quickly is, number one, with new home construction, you have to remember that the listing agent works for the builder. They don't work for you. And most of the time, so they're really trying to hit a quota. Some of them are not trying to help you make a right decision for you and your family, but more so for the builder. It's just the fact of life. Some of them are very good, and I'm not saying all of them are like that. And I just recently dealt with one that was very good, very nice guy, was looking out for the buyers, and it was great. But the other thing, if you have your own agent, you really need to tell them up front that you're interested in looking in new homes, and they must accompany you on your first visit to any new subdivision. If he doesn't, the builder sales rep's going to get they're going to get the deal, and they're going to get the full commission if you buy a home there. This happened to me earlier. It happened to me early on in my career. I met with a referral buyer, great person. We never really talked about new construction, and obviously now since this has happened to me, I talk about it at every first appointment. But she stopped by a new construction development one weekend when we first started looking, signed up and bought one of the places, and I was totally cut out of the deal. Now, it's fine. It wasn't about the commission and all that. It was more so now at that time, I couldn't really help her with anything because, all of the liability was going to be on the builder, and the deal and the contract was with them, and I was completely cut out of the deal. So I couldn't even really walk her through the steps of the process, although I still looked at the contract for her and all that. I looked at a couple of things for her just to make sure she wasn't getting screwed. But the point I'm trying to make is make sure you tell your agent that you're going to be looking at new construction so they can accompany you, they can help you through the whole process, and they get compensated for it too. It's not a bad thing for a real estate agent to get compensated as much as a lot of you like to think. So make sure you talk about new construction with your real estate agent, and you can and should use a real estate agent when it comes to buying new home construction because they can help you out with the process. So that's really, how to do that about new construction with real estate agent. Now, on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about figuring out the neighborhood, figuring out the builder, what to do with model houses, and that type of thing. So give us a call if you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220. And I'm in the studio today on this Halloween Eve, and we're talking about how to buy new home construction, something we really haven't touched on a lot on Real Estate Radio Live lately, and I feel like it's a good time to do that. So love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220 is the number. Again, all of our shows now are going to be podcasts. So that's what it's called. You can get it on iTunes, and you can download our podcasts on the go. I believe we're working on getting on the Android market now too. So just keep that in mind if you want to check this out later or send it to a friend or family member that you think might want to check out new home construction or anything else that we talk about on Real Estate Radio Live. It's a good time to go check out that podcast. So, and also this segment is brought to you by 𝗪𝗏 Construction. They've been serving the Silicon Valley for over 40 years. And you can visit them today at 𝗪𝗏construction.com. That's 𝗪𝗏 like the candy, 𝗪𝗏construction.com. And again, you can find information on all of our sponsors on my website, MikeSellsSiliconValley.com. Okay, let's get back into the new home construction. We've already talked about pros and cons of buying home construction, new home construction, and we talked about, really getting your real estate agent involved and making sure they can be a part of that process, because it is important to have them guide you through it. Because if the listing agent and the builder is representing you as well, you might have some issues, and you might feel at the end of the transaction that you got a little screwed. So that is just, again, I'm speaking in generalities. Not all builders and listing agents are like that with new home construction, but oftentimes I've heard some pretty bad horror stories, and I guess that's a good time to talk about horror stories since we're right next to Halloween. So now when you're looking about, there you go. There's the cue. When you're looking for new home construction, the first thing and the first step you got to do is look online for listings for new home construction. Again, if you have a really good real estate agent that deals with home construction or knows about new projects coming up, you're going to want to pick their brain about it and talk to them about what's going on, what are the new projects, what's coming around, different neighborhoods. You can really get lost online with new home construction websites and all that. There's a lot of information out there about new home construction, particularly in the Silicon Valley and in Santa Clara County. So you might want to reach out to somebody that has more of a expertise in new home construction. The second thing you're going to want to do when you target a couple of these places is drive around the neighborhood and check out the amenities and quality of the homes. And like I mentioned before, with new home construction, you're probably going to be sacrificing amenities and being closer to amenities than a normal pre-existing home. So it's just a fact of life when you're buying new home construction. So one of the things you want to do is go drive the neighborhood, go just like you do when you buy existing home construction. Drive the neighborhood, check out what it's near, check out what amenities are by it, look at the quality of homes, really dig deep into seeing how good these homes are built and what they look like. And then along the same lines is walk the community. So if you're there for an open house or for a showing of a model home, then go walk about the community. If you've run into any homeowners or any people that are living there, ask them about their experience and how they like living there. And again, people, this is something that you want to do with existing home construction too. Existing homes, I keep saying home construction, but existing homes. These are great tips on doing the same thing if you're buying an older home. Walk the neighborhood. Door knock a couple of the neighbors around you. You're going to find out things that you would definitely not find out sometimes on disclosures or from the listing agent or from the seller. If you're spending between $600,000 and $1 million+ on a house and you're not willing to go knock a couple doors, you're crazy. So definitely go walk the neighborhood, knock a couple doors, try to run into somebody that lives around there and really dig deep and see if it's a place that you want to be. All right. The next step in buying new home construction is go to the model open houses. Keep a journal. Take photographs. The one thing that you don't want to do, though, is don't try to cover every model house in the area in one day. Similarly to when you buy an existing home, you don't want to look at 20 houses in one day. And frankly, there isn't enough inventory to do that anyways. But you want to – I always try to limit, especially back in the day when there was enough inventory, I try to limit looking at between 5 to 8 houses in a day, because once you get above that, you forget what the first couple are like, and they all start blending together, and you really, unless you're taking copious notes and tons of pictures, you're going to forget what certain houses were like. So you want to limit the amount of houses you look at, and in particular with new construction, you should limit the new, the model open houses that you go to. Okay, next is check with the developer about potential homeowners association fees and rules. Some of these, a lot of the new developments are going to have HOA. Some of them can be incredibly expensive, so it's something to keep out, and that is going to affect your purchasing power. The lender will include the HOA payment in your qualifying ratio, so that's something to keep in mind. If your HOA is like $500, $600, $700, $800, that's definitely going to affect your purchasing power. Now, if it's $100 or $200, it might not be as serious, but definitely look into homeowners association fees, how much they are, how strict they are. A lot of them don't even allow storage sheds, certain paint colors on the outside, certain materials, solar panels, or even vegetable gardens. So you really want to make sure you know what they're going to cover and what they're going to restrict. And see if they're going to assess penalties for infractions too. That's something important. Another thing is, obviously, and this is very important nowadays with technology, and this is right in line with what James talked about on my show on Monday, ask whether cable and internet are readily available and from what companies. And if you're wired for that, all sorts of things about technology is getting more and more important now. Check to see if the place has cell phone service, for God's sakes. So you're going to want to look into all that. Technology is huge nowadays. Next, if the development is still under construction, make sure and see if you're going to be, they're going to be jackhammering and hammering nails at 7 a.m. for a while. You might not be able to live with that for the next 2 years. So you really want to make sure that you check and see how long the construction is going to last for, where is it going to be, are there time limits, are there restrictions on when they can do construction, et cetera, et cetera. The next thing you're going to want to do is research the zoning laws for the neighborhood, as those can change quickly as well. So things around it, who's buying the property around it. Visit the planner's office and see what other developments are coming on around it too. And you can even ask your agent about the plans for that too. So that is a lot of stuff packed into that segment, but I hope you wrote all that down. If not, you can download the podcast later. But really, you want to research this home, research the builder, research the neighborhood. It's very important. This is not only just for new home construction, but also an existing home, and it kind of applies to everything. But again, if you're spending this much money on a product, do your due diligence. So that is that. I'm going to wrap up the show on the other side of the break.
I'm Mike D'Ambrosio. This is Real Estate Radio Live. Hopefully you're having a beautiful Friday afternoon, and I'll be right back to